Okay, so you've received an email now from Akash or front desk showing that we've made the offer in accordance with the instructions that you've provided to the office. If you click on this link, it won't go anywhere. So what you need to do is you need to log into MLS. And once you're logged in, on the right hand it says Instanet. So click on this. And once it loads, at the very top of the page under our transaction section, the most recent transaction would be the one that's created. Now, if you don't see it, just click on go to transactions. And in here, type in the property address that's on the kit itself. So this is, for example, 7 Stevens. You can see here, this is the one that's called shared transaction. Akash has created this kit for you. And once you go in here, all of the different information that you need is there. So in terms of looking at the documents, first thing is your documents tab. Okay, this is where the schedules are. This is stuff that we don't create, but we technically review for you and put in here. The main forms that you need to have completed and reviewed are under your form section. So the first form is always the ID form. These ones you can complete later. Just make sure you satisfy the FINTRAC requirements by identifying the client and asking if they're representing any or acting on behalf of any third parties that are not in the transaction. Second thing is the buyer representation agreement. So this is a dummy kit. Akash has put himself in as a buyer. So I'm going to quickly show you what to look out for. Okay. So first thing, you'll see the office information here. You'll see the buyer's details. You'll see the buyer's address if you've provided the information to us, the commencement date, the expiry date, and in here the property type, geographic location. If you're looking outside of the Greater Toronto area, be more specific with that. Now, we will deliberately try to highlight certain sections that need to be brought to the attention of the client. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends on what you specify. So this looks okay otherwise. Then you click on transaction forms and you basically go through the different sequences. So let's say, for example, the working with a realtor is the next document. In here, what we'll normally do is if you're dealing with a buyer representation agreement, we know it's a client. So we'll try to highlight this for you. We'll also use the redaction tool to make sure that the client cannot mess up anything and you might not have an oversight. And we'll try for you to highlight the section that is applicable, and again, redact out any sections that don't need to be executed either by you or your client. So we try to do this so that there's less chance of an error, and so that the pertinent information is very prevalent there. And so it's quite simple to proceed from that. So once this is done, we continue off to the confirmation of cooperation and representation. Similarly, with our transaction kits that we've been creating more recently, especially, we've started redacting things. So normally it'll look like this. Listing brokerage represents the interest of the seller. Listing brokerage is not providing customer service or representing the buyer. This will be normally the case when you're dealing with a cooperating brokerage and a listing brokerage. So we'll be the cooperating side, and listing brokerage will be another independently owned and operated real estate brokerage. So all of these things would be redacted. We wouldn't have them filled out. And so again, we would just complete this so that there's absolutely no errors as far as the document is concerned from a completion perspective. Okay, so all of this will be filled out similarly with multiple representation, just so that there's no errors. We will try to redact these things for you. Okay, now next thing is, and obviously this is a dummy kit, so you can see here Wasim was added in as the listing broker, but it would be 2 different offices here. So you just verify and go through this information and make sure everything is correct. Next document is your offer summary document. Not a required document, but so many people are so fussy about this that we just don't bother and include it anyway. It's not worth the headaches and hassles of going back and forth with a listing salesperson who demands it, and you having to justify why it's not required isn't going to help you in any way anyway. So it's better to keep it simple, just include it when required. Now you verify all that, and then you've got the agreement. So first and foremost, what do you look for when it comes to the agreement? What you're looking for, I'll walk you through this. So while that loads, click on search properties. And I'll quickly exit here because in the docket, normally we'll be using the wizard, and in the wizard we'll have the MLS number. Now that may not be the case because this is an old listing of mine. This is in fact my home. So I will go in, quickly pull it up, and I'll tell you exactly what you need to look out for when you are reviewing an offer that front desk has prepared and reviewed, I have reviewed, and then it's coming to you for the final review. Okay, so let's take this one here. Now, the listing you'll be looking at is probably going to be an active listing, so it won't be expired or terminated like that one. Going back to the agreement of purchase and sale, what I want you to do is go to the actual listing that we're preparing the offer for and click on Geo. So you always want to open up Geo here, okay? While Geo loads, okay, so we'll let Geo load. While that loads, we'll go through the rest of it. So the buyer's name, seller's name should be right off of the registry, okay? Fronting on. So this is what I want to show you, the key information here. Geo should be up now. Okay, so first and foremost, once the map populates here, you can see this is Stevens Road, okay? So our property, north is always up, so never ever smoke weed. That means that this is on the south side of Stevens. It's not asking which side of which side the property is facing. It's more particular asking which side of the road is the property on. So Stevens has a south end curb and a north end curb. Our property fronts the south end curb. So first thing here, when you're reviewing this, always look to confirm it's on the right side of the street. Okay, City of Whitby. The frontage and depth are normally posted here as well. You can see this is an irregular lot. So if you click on view measurements and if it's accurate, you can usually use this information here. So we always go with the smaller ones. So 91.94 and 92.55, that's your frontage and your back front. So here we've got 247 and 257. So Akash would have put 92.45 for the front and then 246.78, which is probably was on the older listing because it's not this number. So always look to measure the lot or ask for a survey. Now the next thing, so confirm these two things. Next thing you always want to do is make sure that you've got the full legal description from Geo, not the one that's on MLS, because sometimes on MLS, the listing salesperson doesn't have enough space to put the whole legal description, which means that you're going to miss key information like restrictive covenants, right-of-ways, easements, stuff like that that should be here. Purchase price, always confirm. Your deposit, as I've mentioned in a previous video, will always be, when we draft the agreement, as otherwise described, the deposit will normally be held by the listing brokerage. So because we were the listing brokers in the situation, that's why it says Remax Empire. If there's a schedule, the schedule will be made accounted for under this section. Irrevocability, always confirm this. I don't like using things like 12 o'clock because some people get confused between 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Always use 11:59 a.m. if it's in the morning, or 10 o'clock or 10:30 p.m. I don't know how long your hours are in terms of your workday, but to have it expired 11:59 p.m., it creates anxiety in my experience for clients as well as for you, because you're just waiting around for somebody to get back to you. And midnight's usually the deadline, which I'm not a fan of. So try to make it a reasonable time that is going to be beneficial for you and your clients. The closing date, always make sure your closing date is on a weekday. So again, we will do this exercise so that you don't make any mistakes. But you always want to verify. That's the whole point of the exercise. By the time your client sees the documents, 3 people have seen it: front desk, myself, you, and then the client. So with the 4 people that are reviewing the contract, it makes the chances for any sort of a mistake very slim. So 31st in this situation is a Tuesday, which is acceptable. In here, always make sure your email address and the office fax are there. Same thing with the listing brokerage. We have a standard chattel section that we always add in. You're going to go through this carefully. We try to go through all the photos for the property on the MLS listing as well and qualify this, but always double check the chattels that are included. And if we've missed something, make sure you add it in. Otherwise, if you haven't accounted for the chattel that you want, it may not be there on closing, and your clients might come back to you for that. Normally, when you're showing the property, try to make a note. So as soon as I'm done with a showing, I will record in my phone a quick voice clip that I went through the property and these were the things I found. Any sort of issues that you might have uncovered, have it so that if your client decides to proceed with an offer, you can very quickly recall the property, especially when you've shown 5 or 10 properties and it's difficult to recall them individually. Under the fixtures excluded, and unless it says otherwise on the listing, we're going to put none. Same thing with rental items. It's critical that your client understand and appreciate, especially for the selling side. If you write none here and it turns out there are rental items, you as a seller will be required to pay it off. So if the listing says none and you're the buying salesperson or broker, you're going to put none here specifically. If there is a rental item, investigate further, find out what the terms are, see if you can get the rental contract for your client's review with their attorney, because they will be required, if it's written in here, for example, hot water tank, to assume that rental, which could become problematic. Now, next thing we have here is HST. So HST will normally be included in. The next thing is your title search. This will usually be 1 week to 2 weeks before closing. We'll always put single family residential because that's normally the situation when we're dealing with an offer like this. And then all of our clauses. So we will pre-populate these clauses for you. We always put financing, inspection. All of these things are automatically put in for your client's benefit. Survey clauses there. So these are things that are pre-populated every single time we send you an offer. Now, if your client goes in and says, hey, I don't want a specific condition, you must use Form 127, which is basically written confirmation of informed consent that they've understood the implications and the risks associated with not going in with a conditional offer. So if you need assistance with this, I'll probably do a separate video or give me a call in the interim. Okay, now, next thing I want you to appreciate is once you've reviewed and satisfied everything, ideally, you would have already had the buyer representation agreement entered into and we were not preparing for you. In the event that that's not the case and you're doing the buyer representation agreement and the agreement, make sure you physically segregate them as far as the signing is concerned. So now, if you hit the signings tab here, okay, and you click on add, create signing. So I would do BRA and then the client's name. So Akash is the client. Click on go to new client, go to new signing. And what this will do is it'll take you to the actual signing feature of AuthentiSign. In here under participants, you'll put the client. Under the documents, so he's missing information, which is why it's giving that error. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete him and add myself just for the sake of showing you how this function works. And then once you've added in all the parties, now you can pick the different forms that you need to be added in. Okay, so this will automatically pull up all the documents and everything else. Now, in the event that it doesn't, okay, and you get a box that looks like this, just click on this particular button here for that particular transaction. Or if it doesn't come up, you can select it from the transaction and this one. So in here, if you type in Seven Stevens, again, the same name that you would have given us, it'll show up here. For whatever reason, it's not cooperating. Let's try that again. Okay, so this is the Schedule B. We'll go ahead and add this. And it's probably because I have so many different transaction kits that it's giving me the error. So in this particular situation, I can use this here, okay? And then select the forms I want. So I want the BRA, I want the working with a realtor. I want to specifically, physically segregate these two documents from the rest of the signing. So then I'll hit design. I'll go in, and I've already created another video on how to do the signing. So refer to that video. I'm not going to go through it now. And then what'll end up happening is that once you've marked this up and you send it out for the client to execute, you pick up the phone and you call the client, and I want you to log a phone call. Don't record the phone call. You don't need to do that, especially without the client's consent. Don't record phone calls. Just simply pick up the phone and make a call to your client. Have them open up the docket and go through this with them line by line. Now, by the time you're done this will be a 10 to 15 minute phone call where they understand everything. Then what I want you to do is have them sign it. And in your journal, whether it's a voice journal on your phone or in your handwritten journal, just make a note that at 4:17 p.m. on the 14th of January 2020, I called the client. We went over the BRA. Client signed the BRA. Take a screenshot of the actual call recording on your phone, showing the timestamp and everything, not the recording, but the actual call log on your phone that says that you made a call at 4:17 and how long the call went on for, and save that in your file with this client file. Now, once this is all signed, sealed, and delivered and is returned to you, client's been served with their copy as well. Then you can go in and make a separate transaction kit. And in that transaction kit, you will add specifically the 801, the co-op agreement, and you will add in the agreement of purchase and sale. If you're doing an acknowledgement 127, add that in separately. The whole point is you don't want all the documents jumbled into one docket, because that won't look favorably upon you, especially if the client just, within 5 minutes has signed a whole bunch of documents when clearly they haven't read it. This could become a big problem for you in the long run, and it's something that we don't tolerate at our office. So make sure you're doing this correctly. If there's any questions, give me a call. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.